Hello again and welcome to Spotlight. This is episode 335. Today we're going to be talking about memory cafes, and our guests are George Thomson, Vicky Mastraionni, and Joann Erenhouse, excuse me, Joann.
That's okay.
And first of all, ladies, why don't you begin by introducing yourself?
Okay. So I'm Vicky Mastraionni, and I am a volunteer with Black River Good Neighbor Services, and I help with coordinating the Memory Café activities.
Okay.
And I'm happy to be here.
Joann?
Yeah, I'm Joann Erenhouse. I work with Senior Solutions, and I was fortunate enough to start working at Senior Solutions with Vicky when she was our volunteer manager, and now I'm happy to be a cohort and hopefully work together with Black River and work on the memory cafes.
George?
Yes, hi there. I'm George Thomson, and I am a member of the Black River Good Neighbors Board as well as Vicky. And I've been involved with the Memory Cafe, I think, since its inception. And I actually facilitate caregiver groups for the Memory Cafe, and you'll hear more about that in a few moments.
Okay, now, first of all, why don't we explain to people what the Memory Cafe is? Like a little bit of history and then your organization.
Okay.
And
so I'd be happy to do that. So Memory Cafe was a concept that was first introduced in the Netherlands in 1997. It had roots in the Netherlands because there was a psychiatrist whose name is Dr. Beret Misson, who was treating patients who were suffering from various forms of dementia. And he really noticed that among his patients, there was a lot of stigma that was going on, and people who had memory issues and dementia, and as we now call it Alzheimer's, they were just being isolated from the community. They were suffering from the disease. Not only were the patients, but also their caregivers were. So he set up this Memory Cafe as a means to help break this cycle and try to provide support for both the caregivers and the people who are suffering from Alzheimer's. The concept ended up spreading to Europe. It went to England, then it went to Ireland, then it started in Australia, and ultimately it ended up coming to the United States. And it is a program that is now fully supported and adopted by the Alzheimer's Association, and is a valuable resource for people who are afflicted with the disease. Memory Cafe provides a really safe space and can be hosted anywhere. It can be hosted in community centers, it can be hosted in churches, it can be hosted in coffee houses, etc. They're run differently, but there's one thing that they all have in common, and that is the purpose of providing support to all those that are affected with memory issues. Many cafes, like ours, have separate activities for the caregivers and other activities for those who are suffering from the dementia and memory issues. And I think Vicky's going to talk a bit more about that and tell you exactly what happens in those two sections of a Memory Cafe.
Okay, now George, could you just talk a little bit about the local organization that you're representing?
Absolutely. So the Memory Cafe that we have locally was established because Vicky brought it up at a Black River Good Neighbors board meeting and said she thought that that was an outreach program that we might be able to provide to the community to support those that are afflicted with this disease. And so she did a lot of work, a lot of research. She tracked down and figured out where we could get volunteers to do this. And we had volunteers that were trained through the Alzheimer's Association. Some people were trained to be facilitators for caregivers, such as I was, and some people were trained to be facilitators of a group of people who were affected by the disease. We meet once a month at the present time. We meet at the United Church in Ludlow, and that's from 11 until 1. We presently have a session with the caregivers separately from the people who are suffering from Alzheimer's, separate sessions with different intents, and I'm going to let Vicky talk about what they actually do in each of those groups. And then we meet after both groups have had an opportunity to spend time together. And that's a good time when we have refreshments and can reunite and get ourselves back together and get the loved ones and their caregivers back together.
Okay, now about the purposes of the Memory Cafe. First of all, you mentioned people with Alzheimer's, but doesn't this really affect a number of other sources, like those with various neurological diseases, Parkinson, for example?
It absolutely
Yes,
does.
absolutely.
Who would like to address that?
I think I'll jump in if you don't mind.
That's great.
Yeah, there's so many people who can benefit through these memory cafes. And they're memory cafes, but it doesn't mean all we do is drink coffee. It's a wonderful social atmosphere. And people who come are the caregivers with their loved ones, which is why both groups get socialization, which is very, very helpful to give the support and information and resources to the caregivers, and also provide some gentle activity and stimulation to the loved ones, who sometimes you don't think they're actually aware of what's going on in some cases, but eventually you'll notice, like we had a case where one of the participants used to play piano. And we have a wonderful person, Reverend Janice, who plays guitar and sings. Well, we had wheeled this woman up to the table, and she was sitting here, and when the people were singing and playing guitar, she was going like this. So even though she wasn't singing, you know that music connected deep inside her. Okay. And when those things happen, it's one of the reasons that Vicky and I are so dedicated to these projects.
Okay, now
what else?
In terms of what you've been talking about now is the social engagement side.
Social engagement.
Now,
yeah.
what about how it reduces the stigma of memory loss?
Well, the more people that come to these, the more we talk about it, the more programs we have, the more that the Alzheimer's Foundation has a presence up in Montpelier. This is going to be just like cancer was 20, 30 years ago. Nobody wanted to admit they had cancer. It was the big C. Nobody talked about it. Now, due to the fact that celebrities, organizations, and people went out and said, guess what? I have cancer. Guess what? I'm still living. I'm still a person. The same now with whether you have a form of the 66 forms of dementia. Do you have Alzheimer's? Do you have Parkinson's? Do you have Lewy body dementia? Do you have frontal lobe dementia? What's the other one that I can never remember? Oh, some kind of dementia. Well, it doesn't matter. There's
Lewy body.
Yeah. Any of these forms of memory loss, it could also be traumatic impact, and now you have memory problems. Anybody with those problems are welcome, and our programs are totally free. There's no cost. And that is the threshold that many people need to know.
I want to add to that,
Yeah,
though.
please.
Part of what we have been doing is we've been educating the community. We've been reaching out for volunteers. We've been, doing articles in the Vermont Journal, explaining what we do. And that in itself helps to take away that stigma.
Yeah.
People aren't so afraid to talk about it anymore because it's right there in their neighborhood. And I think we've done a lot with our outreach and letting the community know that we're here to stay. And this is a new way of providing services to our caregivers.
Okay, now you've been talking about the support you're giving. What about the education side of?
Oh yeah.
So we have, and I'm just going to give a typical day of a memory cafe. Is that okay?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
It's a good insight. Yes.
So we're fortunate that we have the United Church because that gives us lots of room to run our program. Okay, that's not the case in every cafe, but it is with ours. So we have our caregivers meet together in one room, and they enjoy the camaraderie of their fellow peers. We also lead a guided discussion. So we bring up topics and about challenging situations or different issues and concerns caregivers have, and they share amongst themselves, what worked, what didn't work. And this sharing of information is a tremendous support for the caregivers. We also use that platform to bring educational material to our caregivers. We keep updated on available resources. We're connected with the Alzheimer's Association, who help to keep us current. So that's a big part of what we do. We want to keep our caregivers informed to help them ease their burdens, to bring us whatever services are available to them. So while the caregivers are engaged, and as George said, he's a facilitator, and they do very well. We have another group that meets in another room, and that's with the care recipients. And they're being entertained by skilled volunteers. These are volunteers that have experience working with folks that have this challenging behavior, because we want to make sure everybody's safe. And so there's various activities that we do, and most of them are meant to be fun and enjoyable, but they're also therapeutic in nature, where we try to have folks focus on what they can remember and not what they can't. So we do games like, word games and reminiscing and storytelling and so on that just helps keep folks sharp. We also do physical exercises and movement, and we do music. As Joann said, we have a volunteer that travels around the different cafes with her guitar and keeps the place humming, and it's probably a highlight of the day. She leads sing-alongs, and the truth is, the music part of our brain is usually the last affected by dementia. So folks who have, can't remember what they had for breakfast can remember songs word for word 30 years ago. So music just is a huge blessing that we have to bring to our
Tell me,
folks.
would this help for someone who just happens to walk into a room and then forgets why they walked into a room?
There's different levels.
But you are welcome to come to any of these memory cafes. We won't turn you away.
And then we also get together for snack as a family style, and that doesn't, we do a lot of sharing and caring there too. So.
Okay, now, you mentioned some of the activities you have. Now, do you have any other stimulating activities?
Ooh, how about balloon volleyball?
You name it.
That's my favorite.
You play volleyball?
Well, say we were the care recipients around this table, and we have several that are pretty quiet, and a couple people who talk. Play balloon volleyball. We get one balloon and we bat it around.
Yeah.
So whoever it comes to, they have to bat it out. The people who are the least responsive are the quickest at balloon volleyball. If I tell you how many times I've been hit in the face with a balloon, because I'm not as fast as they are. Amazing. But it's a function, I think, of the fact that they're in a very warm place. They feel comfortable. They've been listening to the music, and if they come regularly, it's like a second home to some people. And we don't care how they get dressed.
We also have group discussions around the table for care recipients. And, there's a certain level of connection that they share universally, if that's a word, universal, that the leader of the activities helps to bring out, whether it's through storytelling or, like I said, reminiscing, going down memory lane. Sometimes we put YouTube on and we come up with themes and people can relate to. Come and join us sometime and see. It's really a lot of fun.
Sometimes people feel that it's just that they're dealing with this alone. So when we have the opportunity to have our caregivers get together, it gives them an opportunity to talk. And oftentimes they express what they're going through. Sometimes they cry about situations, and it's a real supportive opportunity for them. And what it also does is sometimes somebody will say, I'm dealing with this, I just have no idea what to do. Somebody else may have had the same experience with their loved one. And so they talk about different ideas and things that they might do to help them through certain situations. I see it as a wonderful, wonderful time for them to get support, to be honest, to get a break for a couple of hours from their loved one who, sometimes they can be so demanding and demand so much time and effort, and they really sometimes can really drain the caregiver. So it's an opportunity for people to even get together and say, I just need a break. So we do have programs that for caregivers. We do have access to now flat screen TVs for both the caregivers and for their loved ones, or the ones suffering from the disease. And so we can sometimes even zoom in programs or whatnot so that we can extend the knowledge that we have with knowledge that's out there, either off the Alzheimer's website or some other form. So it's really, I think it's a great opportunity for the caregivers to just get a break.
Well, as a former caregiver, I really appreciate the fact that you were doing something, because caregiving in and of itself is a demanding role.
It is.
And we do give out, like Vicky said, educational material and discussions and leadership on how to, tips about how to overcome anxiety as a caregiver, ways that you can improve your life, and how you can learn to relax too, which ultimately you need as a caregiver, and where you can sometimes find respite, aside from just our, coming to our meetings. Other organizations and grants that Senior Solutions has to provide respite to caregivers.
Yours is frankly one of the few organizations I've ever known that actually addresses the caregiver per se.
Well, I think both, the Black River Good Neighbors and Senior Solutions are very devoted to these
And I think
projects.
one of the important things about caregiving is that if you allow yourself to slip as a caregiver, your value as a caregiver diminishes greatly.
True.
That's a huge message that we
It
So-
is.
we
Yeah.
give to caregivers.
Yes.
I think this next Memory Cafe, we're going to have a meditation. No, I'm sorry, meditation.
Meditation, yeah. Yeah.
And I think George is going to be, why is meditation, how to be mindful, how to relax, and just to have caregivers spend some time on themselves.
That is so important.
Now,
So-
what are the functions of the cafe do you think are important for people to understand?
Well, I think, first off, I'd say that it's a really safe environment for people to come and not have any fears that anything they're going to say or whatnot is going to be, construed as really negative by anybody else. The goal is obviously to be supportive. People can say whatever they want. Sometimes, as Joann mentioned, people come in with some characteristics that caregivers have. If they come in and they're angry, and they can sit down and they can say, I'm just really angry, I don't know what to do or whatnot. So I think a huge characteristic of at least the portion that I work with is just making it a really safe and comfortable and caring environment.
Okay. Now, what we've been talking about as far as the purpose and goals of the Memory Cafe. Now, let's talk a little bit about who should be considered the Memory Cafe.
Oh, who should come?
First of all, is there an age limit on this, or an age?
No, not really. This is strictly a support environment. So we don't care how old you are. We don't even care if you come in your bathrobe and slippers. So long as you can get there and you can share with each other, receive the support, receive the information, and enjoy yourself. If you're a caregiver, relax for 2 hours where you don't have to worry that your loved one is going to tippy-toe out the door and end up on Route 103, okay?
We also want to make sure folks know that this isn't just for Alzheimer. Alzheimer is one of the diseases that leads to
That's right.
dementia. That there's also stroke survivors, there's Parkinson's disease, there's traumatic brain injury that also have issues with cognitive impairment and or memory. So this is open to a wide variety of different
And also, if
conditions.
if you have been recently diagnosed with one of these cognitive diseases, and you're still driving, you're still caring for yourself, please come to one of our memory cafes. You will find the support, the information, and the resources to help you understand what you're coming into. And just come and be part of the group, be part of both groups, travel back and forth between, share information. I have to say that a couple weeks ago, one of the people who were new came in and said to myself and one of our volunteers during our snack time, she goes, coming here today, I got more information and more support than I have gotten in the last year and a half since my husband was diagnosed. On one hand, it broke my heart. On the other hand, I said, thank God we have memory cafes.
Well, okay.
And there are varying degrees, too, of different levels. I mean, we have some young people, actually, relatively young, that, are in their, 30s, that are already starting to have early onset for Alzheimer's disease or other diseases.
Sure.
And they certainly are welcome, too. So there are varying degrees from those that are still, really able to function pretty much independently in life, but know that they have Alzheimer's and they're starting the decline, to those that are pretty seriously involved. So age is not a limit, and the actual extent of the disability certainly is not an issue either.
So in terms of, you really have also described in your answers what the need. Now, what about a person like myself who is beginning to realize that, yes, there are certain things about memory that I have lost.
Okay.
I mean,
we would welcome anybody.
I can't blame it on neurological disease, but
You're also a former caregiver, so
Yes.
all the more reason why you would have a role, because your knowledge and your experience could help another caregiver. So
Exactly.
that's one reason why we would love to have you come. But certainly if you had needed more information about your own memory, we have had a doctor come in and do a presentation on, sort of the onset and progressiveness of dementia. We don't have that clinical background to do it, but you would pick up pieces and resources on where to go, to maybe explore where you're at and what you might need to do to some prevention too.
Ralph,
memory
Ralph,
loss. Go ahead.
think how good you would feel if you're sitting around the table with the caregivers and somebody said, I can't figure out how to do this, blah, blah, blah. And you said, I went through that with my wife, and here's how I handled it. And the guy says, what a brilliant idea, thank you. How good would you feel going home knowing you would help somebody,
oh, it'd be wonderful.
right?
I do want to say, though, Dr. Tortellini is the
Yeah.
doctor. He's a geriatric doctor, a wonderful man. He came and did a presentation, and he said so many different things that were clinical and not hard to understand. But one thing I remembered, he said only 25% of the population over 65 have Alzheimer's. So that's a small amount relative to, I think, the bigger picture. So that was encouraging.
And as we age, we do all start to have memory
Exactly.
issues
Yeah.
as well.
Exactly.
So as you mentioned, you had some memory issues. I think we all have some
Oh,
memory issues.
absolutely,
And as
yeah.
we age, we tend to have more. I
Okay.
think one thing that one could do is start with their primary care physician to, start if you really were feeling, you might have a need for services.
Okay. Now, you've already sort of alluded to the medical side of this. How does medicine in general feel about the value of Memory Café?
That I can't answer. Honestly.
Well, I'll take a stab at that.
Go ahead.
I
Jump in.
think a lot of the medical profession certainly is dealing more and more with people who have memory issues and dementia. Do they know about the Memory Café? I'm going to say that most don't. And that's one thing that we are trying to do. Just in our local community here now, we have put up at least 20 different posters about the Memory Café, and it's a brief description of what it does and where we meet. We're trying to promote more awareness through doctors, through hospitals, through medical facilities, through counseling services and whatnot, to help spread the word about, how people can get some support and help who are suffering from these things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Can I
let's
just-
talk about how people can actually participate in this who feel that this would be of a benefit to them. First of all, who do they contact? Phone, email, snail mail?
That information we have, it's going to be available at the end of our little presentation. They can contact Vicky, and her contact information is listed there. They can contact Joann, they can contact Black River Good Neighbors. We've listed for people for their convenience a helpline if they need it, and also how to contact the Vermont Alzheimer's Association. So that contact information, phone numbers and everything is available and will be available.
Okay,
at
so
the
that's
end
going
of
to be
this.
posted on.
It will be posted at the end of this.
Okay,
yes.
now, is there any cost involved in this?
Absolutely none. Oh, well, the only cost involved would be the cost of the gas in your car to get from your house to the Memory Cafe and home.
Okay, now if you want a cup of coffee, do you have?
We
It's
serve
there.
coffee. Well, you guys have coffee and all kinds of food. We always have, I make enough for an army. And I always make sure to have gluten-free alternatives. I have coffee and decaf, I have juice, we have cookies, we have crudité, we have rolled lunch meat, we have salad. You name it, I try to make a well-rounded balance because good nutrition is also one of the battle armaments to the progression of any disease.
Okay, now, what about additional support groups? Do you have any relation to other support groups?
So I can answer that. The Alzheimer's Association, and the number will be shown at the end of this presentation, they have virtual support groups, and they have a list of those virtual, meaning that if you have a computer, you can go online, whether it's once a month, once a week, and join whatever group is in session. Those are pretty progressive because of COVID. We sort of had to rely on virtual groups, so those are groups that are I think are going to be around for a long time. There are also other support groups that the Alzheimer's Association has listed.
All right, now if someone is going to come to you for the first time, is there anything they should bring?
Bring their loved one.
Well,
They don't have to bring anything.
a
No.
caregiver can come without their.
Yeah, caregivers can come alone, but people are not supposed to drop off their loved one, mainly because that can cause anxiety with the loved one, and then they'll be agitated. So they come as two people. But yeah, they just come. I would say if your loved one or you have dietary restrictions, you might want to bring your own snack just in case. But otherwise, just come prepared to share, to get information, and to get support.
Okay.
There
now-
is a directory as well that is now available online that one can contact, and it is Memory Café, and there was a directory of about 800 different cafes now around the world. 700 of them actually are in the United States. So the directory actually, and we've posted that, it actually tells you by state. You click on a state, and it comes up with all the memory cafes, the time they meet, et cetera, within a particular range. So
And right now, our Black River Memory Cafe is once a month, and that's the second
You're the
Thursday of every month. And Joann, you're
Yeah, Chester's the
is-
first Thursday. Ludlow is the second Thursday, and the third Thursday is something else. And the fourth Thursday of the month, I think, is Wilmington. No, and the fourth Monday of the month is Brattleboro.
okay. And
Okay.
But we
ideally-
share. We
ideally,
encourage people to come to
We'd like
both.
to have something once a week for
Oh, God, would be great.
within the Windsor County, not even Wyndham, Windsor County, once a week, whether it's,
Now, I know from case of the Ludlow location, it is ADA compliant, so that if you have a wheelchair or something
yeah.
like that.
And Chester, there's an elevator at the church, so you can.
We have an
Yeah, so
elevator
that's
at the
good.
church, yeah.
And in Chester, it's in the Willard Hall, which is the back of St. Luke's, right there on Main Street in Chester. If you park in the back behind Six Loose Ladies Yarn Shop, there's a nice big parking lot. It's this level walkway right to the door.
Okay.
I don't think there is a specific, in setting this up, a specific requirement for ADA
This makes it
handicap.
easy.
However, I think the sites that we've talked about anyway, certainly ours is, and the sites that we've talked about, I think they all do have ADA handicapped access.
Yeah, I would think that we try to make sure that there are as few obstacles to coming as possible.
Okay, just in a few sentences now, would you just like to summarize exactly what we've been talking about? as to how Memory Café affects those who have a problem with memory and the caregivers.
Sure.
I just want to start out with if there wasn't a event for the caregiver to go to, that's really what it boils
Yeah,
down to.
yeah.
So there's the caregivers alone, isolated, separated from any kind of support, and oftentimes doesn't have the energy and even the willpower to try to do something different. So that's sort of the outcome
Yeah.
if we didn't have supports for caregivers, and that's what bringing us to. But if somebody wanted to add a little bit more.
I can. Yeah, I think where Vicky's going is perfect, because so many of the caregivers start out, their loved one isn't really, that disabled, but then as they progress through the disease, they don't want to take them out to lunch with their friends. They can't go here, they can't go there. They're embarrassed to take them places because someone with dementia may not act socially acceptably. So they stay more and more insulated, and they stop having friends come over to the house. They get more and more isolated, so they're stuck inside without that camaraderie and the friends that they're used to. This is the opportunity to get back in touch with their community, with other people, and people who, like them, understand what's going on.
Okay. Well, I think that this is an important topic, and I hope that the viewer is cognizant of where there is support locally and who to contact. And I believe that we will have that information on the screen now. And I just want to thank all of you for being here to speak with us about this.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully we can do this again just to get an update on the progress. Okay.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mel. And that's going to be a wrap. I'll see you next time.
Bye.